Hello everyone, this is Dr. Vikas Kumar and on behalf of Chetan Bharat Learning, I welcome all of you. Well, before we begin, just a very important message to everyone. Well, the height of the arrow, what height it reaches, depends on the aim. If the aim is very high, the arrow will end up being higher. If the aim is low, the arrow may not reach those great heights. Great, so this motivational idiom, which comes very close to, or should come very close to the hearts of many aspirants of CLAT, makes a lot of sense, especially in your case. Well, we're talking about CLAT. Today we are going to discuss CLAT English paper 2021. Now, something really important. Before we begin with the paper, let's understand a little bit of, intricacies of the paper, a little bit of elements of the paper. What kind of paper is CLAT? When I talk about English, before that, I think I must introduce myself to you. This is Dr. Vikas Kumar. A doctor not because I'm good at medicinal practice. I'm a PhD in English from the Thandi Wadiyan of Himachal Pradesh University. And that was because I was brought up in Shimla. So I have been training students for a lot of years now, right? Training students on CLAT, and various other competitive exams. And you know what? What I have found is the English for CLAT is definitely different, way different. The focus is on reading comprehension. The vocab is not very difficult, but it tests your ability to gauge the meaning. When we talk about English from the point of view of CLAT, one thing that strikes is that the examiner, the paper setter, tests you on your ability to make sense, draw sense out of a given passage. So whether I know the little meanings of the words or not does not make the entire difference. I'm not saying that it is futile or it is redundant or it doesn't have value. It does have value, but it is not the only thing. What really makes a lot of difference is that how well can you gauge the meaning? How well can you draw the meanings of given passages? So let's begin. Right, here we go, the first passage. Quite easy it was. I read an extract from a Scandal in Bohemia by Arthur Conan Doyle. I rang the doorbell and was shown up to the chamber, which had formerly been in part my own. With hardly a word spoken means, कोई बात नहीं हुई. शायद कोई एक भी बात नहीं हुई. Sherlock Holmes waved me to an armchair. ऐसे करके. Then he stood before the fire. वो खड़े थे near the fire and looked me over in his singular introspective fashion. अभी तक author ने किस तरह का ambience create किया है? We have been able to understand that we have something mysterious coming away, है ना? Introspective fashion. Introspect करना मतलब कुछ ढूंढना. जब हम कोई चीज ऐसे करते हैं कि कोई रीजन ढूंढने की कोशिश करते हैं या फिर हम ये ढूंढने की कोशिश करते हैं कि एक्चुअली चल क्या रहा है. Watson, you did not tell me that you intended to go into harness. एक डायलॉग भी आ गया. फिर आपको कैसे पता चला? I see it, I deduce it. Deduce means? Deduce का मतलब होता है ड्रॉ कर लेना, कोई मीनिंग समझ लेना, दिया चाहे डायरेक्टली ना हो. How do I know that you have been getting yourself very wet lately and that you have been a most clumsy, awkward and careless servant girl? Right. So अभी तक जो discussion हुआ है उससे what we have understood is I see, I deduce it. How do you know that you've been getting yourself very wet lately? That you're a most clumsy and careless servant girl. कैसे पता चला that this person has been out? वो कह रहे हैं कि तुमने मुझे नहीं बताया कि तुम बाहर गए थे, लेकिन मुझे पता चल गया. My dear Holmes, said I. मैंने कहा, my dear Holmes, this is too much. ये सच है. I had a country walk. I'm so sorry for that. All right. Perfect. It is true that I had a country walk. Country walk मतलब जब आप आसपास में कहीं चले जाते हैं walk के लिए. On Thursday and came home in a dreadful mess. But as I have changed my clothes, I can imagine how you deduce it. The response is that when I returned, so कपड़े चेंज कर लिए गए थे. मुझे समझ नहीं आया कि आपको पता कैसे चला कि मैं बारिश में ड्रेंच्ड हूं. As to Mary Jane, she is incorrigible, but there again, incorrigible मतलब जिसको सुधारा ही नहीं जा सकता या कुछ कर नहीं सकते. I fail to see how you work it out. मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा कि आपको कैसे पता चल गया. Then it is simplicity itself. उन्होंने कहा, मेरी आंखों ने बताया that on the inside of left shoe पर क्या था, जहां पर फायरलाइट स्ट्राइक हो रही थी. अब एक क्लू आपके लिए, वो लिखा था ना, होम्स फायरलाइट के पास खड़े थे. Leather is scored by 6 almost parallel cuts. जैसे कि किसी ने कोशिश की हो, they have been caused by someone जिसने केयरलेसली कोशिश की है एजेस से वो मड हटाने के लिए, और वो कोशिश में वो स्क्रैचेस डल गए. Hence you see, मेरी डबल डिडक्शन ने मुझे बताया कि आप खराब वेदर में, वाइल्ड वेदर में बाहर गए थे. नाउ ये एक इंसिडेंट थी, एक एग्जाम्पल थी. ऑथर ने शुरू कहां से किया है, देखिए, रीड एंड एक्सट्रैक्ट, यहां से ऑथर ने शुरू किया है. यहां पर इसे फिक्शन में डिटेक्टिव्स लाइक होम्स, शर्लक होम्स, इसी तरह से पोर्ट्रे किए जाते हैं एज पीपल विद एक्सेप्शनली ब्रिलियंट माइंड्स. वी ऑल एग्री दे पोजेस एक रेयर स्किल होती है टू सी एंड एनालाइज, जो ऑर्डिनरी लोग एनालाइज नहीं कर पाते. दे हैव इनक्रेडिबल एबिलिटीज, जिस पे विश्वास भी नहीं होता कई बार. टू इन्फर, डिड्यूस, इंड्यूस एंड कंक्लूड, ये एबिलिटी आप में जनरेट करना है. जब आप वर्बल की बात करते हैं, इंग्लिश की बात करते हैं फ्रॉम द पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ऑफ क्लैट, तो ये एबिलिटी डेवलप होना बहुत जरूरी है. फिर एक और एग्जाम्पल. Then there is G.K. Chesterton's fictional Catholic priest, Father Brown, जो किस पर रिलाई करते हैं, on his extraordinary, inordinately strong power of sympathy and empathy. वो जिससे होता क्या है, they enable him to imagine, to feel. वो empathy और sympathy को इतने अच्छे से यूज करते हैं कि वो एक क्रिमिनल की तरह ही सोचने लगते हैं. वो एक्सप्लेन करते हैं, आई हैड थॉट आउट एग्जैक्टली कैसे अ थिंग लाइक दैट कुड बी डन एंड इन व्हाट स्टाइल और स्टेट ऑफ माइंड अ मैन कुड रियली डू इट. सो ये सोचिए, आपके सामने क्रिमिनल है, आप एग्जैक्टली सोच सकते हैं क्रिमिनल की तरह, तो फिर ये भी सोच पाएंगे कि अगला स्टेप क्या होगा क्रिमिनल का, बचने के लिए उसने क्या क्या किया होगा. एंड व्हेन आई वाज क्वाइट श्योर दैट आई फेल्ट एग्जैक्टली लाइक द मर्डरर मायसेल्फ, ऑफ कोर्स आई न्यू हु ही वाज. और जब मुझे ये पता चल गया कि मर्डरर एग्जैक्टली सोच कैसे रहा है, क्या थॉट प्रोसेस है, तो फिर मुझे ये भी समझ आएगा कि मर्डरर कौन है. Sherlock finds the criminal by starting from the outside. जैसे वो शू वाली एक एग्जाम्पल कोट की थी. शर्लॉक होम्स बाहर के एटमॉस्फेयर, चीजें, उनको देखकर he finds out, he gauges who is the culprit. साइंस पर रिलाई करते हैं. He relies on experimental methods. Obviously, he deduces beautifully. On the other hand, on the contrary, Father Brown uses psychological experiences learned from those who make confessions. So he relies on introspection, intuition also, and empathy. He begins to think like a criminal. Beautiful. There is yet another set of detectives like those created by writers like Agatha Christie. A Belgian detective, Ulysses Porritt, is a storyteller who draws information from the stories that others tell. So, very patiently, in a very composed manner, he listens to various accounts of what happened, where it happened, and how. And then, he listens for credibility. What can be believed? Where do you have ambiguity? Ambiguity is something that gives various meanings, maybe to a sentence or a word. Then he identifies why and how the pieces of the jigsaws don't fit together. So where are the loopholes? He finds it that way. Ultimately, he uncovers the truth, unveils the truth. Beautiful. So before we look at the questions, the first thing that we need to understand, the passage is beautiful, right? It talks about various things. Okay. It talks about what are the techniques used by various detective characters. Sherlock Holmes. Then he talks about Father Brown. And then he talks about the last was, see? Ulysses Porritt. So, in this passage, the author has quite cleverly dealt with various techniques rather used by various detectives. All right. What can be inferred? Watson is Holmes's mentor? Mentor, rather. We don't know. Earlier, Watson used to live with Holmes. This is stated as the correct answer. Let's find it out. Watson is a detective. Watson is not a detective. Holmes is a detective. Watson shares all his personal matters with Holmes. Never ever do we see this in the passage. Watson is Holmes's mentor is also beyond the context. Now, if we go back to the passage and read this, with hardly a word spoken, Holmes waved me to an armchair. Then he stood before the fire and looked this. Read this. Watson. This clearly tells you that they were living in the same house. So the first question has been solved. Let's move to the next one. It is evident that for solving cases, Father Brown relies largely on Father Brown. Let's go back before looking at the options. Where do we see Father Brown? Can you see Father Brown here? No. Not even here. There you go. There you go. Psychological experiences, introspection, intuition, and empathy. Something of this sort should be the answer. Let's find out. What did I do? All right. It is evident that for solving cases relies largely on his own sympathetic. Yes, he mentioned sympathy. He mentioned empathy. Thought process about criminals. Absolutely right. No problem. A sympathetic approach towards various people's opinion on the case to be solved? No. Not only sympathetic approach, empathy also. So this option is incomplete. A detective analysis of the crime? No. Not deductive analysis, not of the crime, rather of the criminal. Wrong. Great. Let's move to the next question. For the three detectives mentioned in the passage, which one of these would be non-essential? Okay. Sensitivity, I'm talking about B. This is not the correct answer. When you have empathy, you need to have sensitivity also. Not the answer, because non-essential is what the examiner has asked for. Critical thinking, it is very important. Critical thinking includes all the aspects, right? Patience, definitely needed. They don't need to forgive, naturally. In order to solve cases, Poirot uses the art of the narratives, yes. That we've been told. Building a fantasy based on? Definitely not. Empathizing? No, it is with Father Brown. Creating new plots? He doesn't. Detecting and analyzing the missing links. There were terms like ambiguity, missing links. If you want me to take you back, I shall. Well, here we go. Ambiguity, credibility. How the pieces of jigsaws don't fit together. So, missing links. Jigsaws don't fit together. The word incorrigible is the antonym of. Alright. So, incorrigible means somebody who's not going to improve, who doesn't mind what he or she has done. So, obviously, repentant is the exact opposite. Therefore, the correct answer. Right. We move to passage 2 with this. Since long we have witnessed unimaginable levels of success and failure of various projects, businesses, scientific missions, and even wars. Unimaginable levels. Clue for you. Alright. From such triumphs and defeats emerges the much debatable thought. Is planning and strategy more important than execution? Some project leaders and their teams believe that planning leads to clarity. So if we don't plan, we don't know what do we know and what do we need. It helps to set the timeline and the budget. So planning is really important, according to them. Resultantly, when the planning is messed up, haphazard, it is not proper, it is disorganized and unstructured, the very aims of the projects become hazy. Hazy means unclear. So there is no clarity when there is no planning. This further leads to unprecedented budget collapses and poor time management. Absolutely correct. In some cases, teams have worked relentlessly, tirelessly to complete assignments. Absolutely. But poor planning has invariably led to customer dissatisfaction. At times, a complete collapse of the entire project. According to Benjamin Franklin, failing to plan is planning to fail. So if you fail to prepare, be prepared to fail. This is exactly what he's talking about. अभी तक जो focus है, that has highly been on planning. एक aspect को discuss कर लिया गया है, execution को discuss नहीं किया है अभी तक, right? चलें. Numerous entrepreneurs have the faith that strategies, again, planning, help to enhance not only speed and quality of production, but also consumer satisfaction. Quite right. There are no strategies to tackle the unplanned events or unexpected interruptions. There is a high possibility of entire projects coming to a grinding halt. Again, he is focusing on planning. Some of the world's best airports, bridges, and astronomical missions are the result of what? Good planning, good strategies. However tells you that there is a change in tone. There are some architects, artists, and entrepreneurs who prefer to dive straight from the board of ideas into the pool of execution. So there are others. I told you, execution की बात हुई ही नहीं है अब तक, अब हो रही है. however के साथ. Don't change. पहले बात हो रही थी प्लानिंग की, अब एग्जीक्यूशन पर आ गए. There are people who straight away like to execute, who don't believe in a lot of planning. They believe that suitable strategies are best shaped during the process of execution. So there are people who believe that the best strategies are formed while you are already executing those. Great plans and strategies may fail while encountering unexpected situations. For everything you cannot plan. Sometimes you may plan and you may be successful. But at other times, you have to go straight away into execution. Steve Jobs says, according to me, ideas are worth nothing unless executed. They're just a multiplier. Execution is worth millions. Only plans do not take you anywhere. It is the execution. That is the most important thing. According to Bill Gates, unhappy customers are the greatest source of learning. Fickle-minded consumers and change होती markets जो है, market के जो trends हैं ऊपर नीचे जाते हैं, these can mar, destroy or hamper projects that stand on fixed plans. क्योंकि वो change हो रहा है ना. So where will your planning go? Market trends तो favor कर रहे हैं. It is the need-based, flexible and innovative strategies that help to hold, the impact of these vacillating desires. So वो तो जो है वो execution है, जो flexible होना चाहिए. हमेशा हम plan नहीं कर सकते. After rigorous planning and testing a new recipe on 2 lakh consumers in 85, ये जो कंपनी है Coke brought out the new Coke. Rigorous planning और testing के बाद it brought out Coke. Much to their disappointment, product उतना अच्छा नहीं चला जो expected था और बहुत बड़ा financial loss naturally हो गया. The company realized that during the process of data collection, उन्होंने कंसिडर नहीं किया था प्रोडक्ट का लॉयल्टी एंड ओल्ड फैशन हैबिट्स ऑफ कंज्यूमर्स. Therefore, a balance of pragmatic tactical planning, अच्छी strategies and अच्छा execution is likely to ensure the accomplishment of tasks at each stage of a project. Now, the successful execution आसान नहीं है. It is pretty difficult. The road is winding and bumpy. Road smooth नहीं है, सीधा भी नहीं है. It may need twisting, tweaking, or at times abandoning the original plan. Original plans को छोड़कर नए plans की तरफ जाना और उनको redesign करना. Often we turn to nature for inspiration. अक्सर हम nature से inspiration लेते हैं. Think plans and strategies are the seed. Execution is the nourishment. Consumer is the capricious weather का कोई भरोसा होता नहीं है. So consumer क्या पसंद कर रहा है? You never know. You can never tell. The passage can be best termed as expository, descriptive, abstract, narrative. क्या कुछ describe किया है? कोई एक चीज को describe नहीं किया है उन्होंने. He has talked about 2 aspects of successful businesses, 2 elements rather. Abstract, it is definitely not abstract, it is concrete. He is not talking in vague terms. Narrative, he has not told you a story. Expository, he has explained something in great detail with good examples also. Right, let's continue. Next question. The author's main purpose is to suggest that people succeed only when they have great strategies. No. He talks about strategies and execution. So this has been eliminated. Highlight the fact that execution is indispensable. We cannot get rid of it. Absolutely right. As planning and strategy. So both things are needed. Illustrate the impact of poor planning and weak strategy. No. Highlight the hurdles that come in the way of execution. This is incomplete. Illustrate the impact of poor planning and weak strategy, but then he illustrates the results, the outcomes of poor execution also. Highlight the hurdles that come in the way of execution. Not at all. He talks about planning also. So B is the most comprehensive answer. So quite an easy one, right? Next one. From the failure of New Coke, the company learned that tested and tried strategies are essential for success. No, because tested means those were tested earlier, but times are changing, right? So Coke was not accepted, was not received well by the consumers. They went by the tested strategies. So these are not essential. Surveys and data calibration are a sheer waste of time? Not at all. We cannot say that. This is too harsh to be correct. Consumers change brand preferences too frequently. Again, beyond the context, changing in the behavior, in rather the habits of consumers should not be taken for granted. Absolutely right, must not be taken for granted. These need to be studied pretty well. For the accomplishment of a project, Steve Jobs propagates an approach that is similar to Benjamin Franklin's. Now, what was Benjamin Franklin's strategy or approach? Where do we see Benjamin Franklin? Let's go back. Right, do you see Benjamin Franklin here? Since long this. I will have to read it again, right? That's okay. That's okay. We don't see it here. All right. Let's move forward. So it is absolutely clear that the approach of Franklin, Steve Jobs says, see, for the accomplishment of a project, Steve Jobs, right, suggests an approach that is different from Franklin. Now, Franklin says something else. Steve Jobs says something else. Next one. The something in consumer is the capricious weather. Capricious weather refers to the demands of the customers. Absolutely. It is a metaphor. It is a metaphor which means something else, which stands for something else. For example, he's a tiger. So he's strong as a tiger. He kills people brutally. Something like that. Okay. All right. Let's move to the next one. Since the worldwide inoculation process is going strong, vaccine diplomacy has become a hot topic, burning topic. In their quest for ensuring vaccine security, one report by the New York Times, based on the data on vaccine contracts compiled by Duke University, क्या show करती है that the advanced purchase contracts made by some advanced countries for potential vaccines could vaccinate their population many times. The European Union 2 times the United States, size के बात करें, and the United Kingdom 4 times and Canada 6 times. The expectation that an early vaccination will bring back, क्या वापस लाएगी वो? Normalcy and a required push to economic growth, जो कि fueled many advanced countries to engage in vaccine battles. तो इससे vaccine battles बढ़ गए. अब ये जो arguments है of public good and global cooperation, these have gone out of the window now. की बात ही कोई नहीं कर रहा है. While advanced countries have turned their back on the need of poor countries to access COVID-19 vaccines. Important line, advanced countries have turned their back on, यानी हमें कुछ लेना देना है, आप देखिए, on poor countries. India ने एक empathetic attitude display किया है to their needs. ये जो weak countries हैं. India has taken a position that a significant percentage of the approved of doses exports के लिए जाएंगी इन्हीं countries में जहां पर वैक्सीन नहीं पहुंच पा रही है. While exports to neighboring countries will be under grant mode, initial shipment जो होगा ना to least developed countries will be free of cost. That makes sense also. और जो shipments of vaccines हैं from India, they have already started reaching different parts of the developing world. क्योंकि थोड़ा पुराना पैसेज है 21 वाला. While India is in its first phase of vaccination to cover healthcare workers, exports from India are helping other countries. So उससे help तो उनको भी हो ही रहा है. In initiating phase 1 of their vaccination program, a gesture which is appreciated globally. So एक democracy में one can expect the backlash of sending vaccines. होगा, opposition कुछ तो कहेगा, right? abroad without vaccinating its population. लोग कहेंगे, कहा भी था कि अपने लोगों को वैक्सीनेट किए बिना आप दूसरी जगह भेज रहे हैं. Nevertheless, इंडिया की जो अप्रोच थी, it only reinforced the need of having joint, coordinated, united efforts in bringing COVID under control. ये जो रिस्पॉन्स है, it manifests India's unstinted commitment to global development. और इसने कंसोलिडेट किया है भारत का नाम एज वर्ल्ड्स फार्मेसी. द एटीट्यूड ऑफ इंडिया टुवर्ड्स वैक्सीनेटिंग द पॉपुलेशंस इन द पुअरर कंट्रीज, इसने एक डिस्कशन जनरेट किया है रिचर कंट्रीज में अबाउट द नेसेसिटी फॉर मोर प्रोएक्टिव मेजर्स टू रोल आउट वैक्सीन्स टू द डेवलपिंग नेशंस, जो कि नेचुरल है, वो होना ही था. Which of the following best describes the purpose of this message? Right. To encourage vaccine nationalism and discourage global cooperation. इंडिया ने तो उल्टा किया है, तो ये कैसे हो सकता है? To discourage vaccine nationalism and encourage global cooperation. यही किया है इंडिया ने. To encourage poor countries and discourage advanced countries. Very negative. To encourage India to provide vaccines. इंडिया तो ऑलरेडी कर रहा है. बहुत आसान क्वेश्चन है. सो फार ऑल द क्वेश्चंस दैट वी हैव ट्राइड बीन क्वाइट इजी. वो आपकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग पर बेस्ड है बस. द टर्म इनॉक्यूलेशन प्रोसेस एज यूज्ड इन द पैसेज मींस, यही इसका मीनिंग है, आर्टिफिशियली इम्यूनिटी इंड्यूस करा जाना. बाकी कोई भी सेंस नहीं बनाता. अगेन अ वेरी इजी क्वेश्चन. Advanced purchase contracts of vaccines by developed countries are premised on the hopes. किस बेसिस पर वो हैं, कौन सी होप्स पर? That vaccination will restore normalcy. वहां एक मेंशन भी था ये, अगर हम चल लें पैसेज में वापस, ये bring back normalcy, ये देखिए, right? So here we were. No, not power to nations. प्रमोट ग्लोबल वेलबींग एंड ग्रोथ. ग्रोथ कहां से? वो तो वेलबींग, सेहत की बात हो रही थी. नॉर्मलसी एंड ट्रस्ट इकोनॉमिक रिकवरी, क्योंकि अगर लोग सही होंगे तभी तो इकोनॉमिक रिकवरी आएगी. ग्रोथ तो किसी भी सेंस में हो सकते हैं ना. दैट इज अ वेग टर्म. The author cautions that India's approach in vaccine distribution may have negative repercussions among, कहां पर ये बात होगी? Obviously, opposition के जो लीडर्स हैं वो इस मैटर को जरूर उठाएंगे. यही बात उन्होंने की थी. All right, among sustainable development goals, the third goal reads, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Which of the following sentences from the passage reflects the reversal of this SDG? The arguments of public good and global cooperation have gone out of the window now? Not at all. Advanced, in fact, this alone is not the correct answer. This is one of them, right? Advanced countries have turned their back. ये भी था, तो अकेले ये भी आंसर नहीं हो सकता, collectively हो सकता है. ये दोनों ही हो गए. The advanced purchase contracts made by some advanced countries for potential vaccines, ये भी given था, तो ये भी सही हो गया. So therefore D correct answer है. अकेले कोई भी आंसर complete नहीं है. Right. So let's move to the next passage. Following the transition of democracy with the inauguration of Nelson Mandela, जब वो president बने थे 1994, South Africa was faced with the task of dealing with its past, as well as undertaking some action to deal with structural social injustice, जो कि वहां बहुत prevalent था. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission herald करना मतलब announce कर देना, as the most ambitious and organized attempt to deal with crimes of a past regime through a concept of truth, right, values. And it came into force on 19th July 1995 in South Africa. Emerging as a political strategy to acknowledge past suffering whilst promoting a future based on the concerns of social justice. जो rule of law and reconciliation था ना, the commission has struggled to fulfill its objectives. तो objectives fulfill हो नहीं पाए हैं अभी तक. हालांकि the TRC, अब TRC क्या है? Truth Reconciliation Commission, जिसकी हम बात कर रहे हैं, जो हमारा सब्जेक्ट है. incorporated these broader concerns into the mandate of its 3 subcommittees. 3 subcommittees बनाई गई थी. They were disregarded in practice. So जो subcommittees थी ना, reflected concerns for human rights violations, amnesty and reparation and rehabilitation. ये सब amnesty वर्ल्ड वाइड जो लोगों के कनेक्शन है वो ब्रदरहुड और ह्यूमन राइट्स के वायलेशंस की भी बात करते थे वो, और रिहेबिलिटेशन की भी बात की उन्होंने. These were not coupled with some form of social transformation. कोई social transformation हुआ नहीं. The public transition from apartheid racial discrimination को कहते हैं, established through a negotiated settlement rather than a revolutionary process, it framed the commission's powers. Commission की जो powers थी, those were framed in this manner. Now, shaped by the historical context of this particular transition, the TRC was quite careful not to rock the structural boat. Rather than pursuing truth and justice, इसके उल्टा, as an integrated feature of social transformation, the commissioners, or to a greater extent, the government of South Africa itself, they maintained an agenda that avoided a challenge to the status quo. तो फिर purpose defeat हो गया, क्योंकि वो नहीं चाहते थे to rock the structural boat. Structure को totally dismantle वो करना नहीं चाहते थे. तो जब वो dismantle नहीं किया, तो फिर जो purpose था वो अच्छे तरह से achieve हुआ नहीं. A focus on restorative justice was taken by the commission with an emphasis placed on mechanisms to restore victims and survivors through reparations policy. अब जो state-led acknowledgement है of suffering and a condemnation together with the transformation of the system that implemented such widespread forms of abuse. Abuse किसी भी तरह से हो सकता है, so उस सबको acknowledge तो कर लिया गया था. The priority of changing the apartheid conditions of gross inequality, क्योंकि apartheid अपने साथ ये सब कुछ लेकर आता है, suffering लेकर आता है और abuse लेकर आता है. So the priority of changing the apartheid conditions of gross inequality and oppression provided a backdrop. Backdrop मतलब एक background, एक basis to the approval of the TRC by those who had suffered. तो naturally उन्होंने तो support करना ही था. More difficult to accept was the provision of amnesty to those who had undertaken violations of human rights. ये जो process था ना, it placed amnesty of violations as a carrot to perpetrators in exchange for a full story. ठीक. अब amnesty क्या होता है? Amnesty होता है एक official माफी दे देना सबको, right? So moreover difficult to accept was the provision of amnesty. अब वो उन लोगों को naturally amnesty का provision उनको अच्छा नहीं लगा. To those who had undertaken violations of human rights. The process placed amnesty of violations as a carrot to perpetrators in exchange for a full story. Naturally, it caused several debates. The status quo as used in the passage means, इसका बहुत clear सा meaning है, यही इसका correct meaning है. जो situation already exist करती है, उसको हम status quo कहते हैं. Which of the following best describes the tone of the author? Optimistic, क्या वो optimistic है कि हो जाएगा, बहुत अच्छा हो जाएगा? नहीं. क्या वो threat कर रहे हैं? वो threat भी नहीं कर रहे हैं, ये हो जाएगा, वो हो जाएगा. क्या वो compassionate है? किसकी तरफ compassionate है वो? Compassionate means when we express love, kindness, sympathy. हाँ, वो critical है. वो पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव्स दोनों की बात करें, वो ये एक इवैल्यूएशन कर रहे हैं कि ये हुआ है या नहीं हुआ है, क्या हुआ है. Which of the following is not the broader concern of TRC? देखते हैं. Deal with crimes of past regime through a concept of truth है, ये तो मेंशन था फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ में, तो ये आंसर नहीं हो सकता. To acknowledge past suffering, ये भी नहीं हो सकता, because is not the broader concern. To emerge as a political strategy, इसकी बात नहीं हुई थी. For reconciliation of rule of law, political strategy की बात नहीं हुई थी. Therefore, this is the answer. To promote a future based on the concerns of social justice, ये भी mentioned है. Which of the following statements is least likely to be inferred? Least likely. The TRC ignored some of the broad concerns. TRC did ignore some of the broad concerns, right? So ये तो लग रहा है क्योंकि उसका पर्पस डिफीट हो गया. TRC ने भी सारी चीजों को उन्होंने कहा कि सोशल स्ट्रक्चर नहीं खराब करना है. वो एक लाइन थी ना, डज नॉट वांट टू रॉक द सोशल समथिंग स्ट्रक्चरल समथिंग. द सब कमिटीज ऑफ द TRC लैक्ड एन एजेंडा ऑफ सोशल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन. ये भी लग रहा है, तो ये भी इन्फर किया जा सकता है. हमें पूछा गया लीस्ट लाइकली. द TRC मेड अर्नेस्ट एफर्ट्स टू प्रोटेक्ट ह्यूमन राइट्स. या हियर वी गो. कहीं ऐसा नहीं लिखा, नहीं तो अगर ये होता तो फिर तो पर्पस डिफीट नहीं होता ना, सक्सेसफुल हो जाता, सर्व हो जाता. The TRC lacked the desire and strength to challenge the prevailing conditions. जब वो स्ट्रक्चर को छेड़ना नहीं चाहते थे सोसाइटी के, तो मतलब they lacked the strength to challenge the prevailing conditions. उसीलिए स्टेटस को मेंटेन रहा. What does amnesty mean in the context of the passage? Severe punishment? No, it doesn't mean that. Bring legal action? No, arrest warrants. So official part. Literal meaning भी यही है. Next passage पे चलते हैं. In the domain of education, the current pandemic has made three things clear. It has proved beyond any doubt that we need schools. Irrespective of which country talks about, right? Rather, which country we talk about, one talks about. Students and parents want schools to open and function in full glory. सब परेशान हो गए भाई ऑनलाइन क्लासेस से. याद होगा आपको वो जमाना. With appropriate precautions. Secondly, it has shown that technology may prove to be useful in education if it is employed thoughtfully. Absolutely right. Random surfing of the internet may lead to a collection of pieces of information that do not add up to any meaning. ये भी बात सही है. Internet का खराब usage. As Chomsky says, you cannot pursue any kind of inquiry without a relatively clear framework. इंक्वायरी तब तक सही नहीं हो सकती जब तक फ्रेमवर्क क्लियर ना हो. दैट इज डायरेक्टिंग योर सर्च एंड हेल्पिंग यू चूज व्हाट इज सिग्निफिकेंट. सो पता तो हो, सिर्फ ऐसे ही गूगल खोल के बैठ जाएं तो हमें कुछ कंस्ट्रक्टिव हम नहीं कर पाएंगे, बिकॉज वी नीड टू नो व्हाट डू वी नीड. मोरओवर, एक हेजेमोनिक टेक्नो-मैनेजरियल सॉल्यूशंस टू द लिंग्विस्टिक एंड कल्चरल हेटेरोजेनिटी ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स शायद हो भी नहीं सकता. टेक्नोलॉजी मस्ट हेल्प अस टू रिस्पेक्ट इंडिविजुअल. हर एक की अपनी सिचुएशन है, पीयर ग्रुप सबका अलग है, कम्युनिटी नीड्स एंड एस्पिरेशंस. सो एक कॉमन सा ऐसा कुछ एक स्टैंडर्ड हो नहीं सकता. Thirdly, a convergence of the efforts of public civil society and private enterprise will have to take place if we wish technology to meaningfully mediate. टेक्नोलॉजी को तभी से ही यूज कर सकते हैं अगर ये लास्ट पॉइंट भी हो. Convergence of efforts of public civil society and private enterprise. These will have to take place. Meaningfully mediate between school and home करवाना है तो, especially underprivileged groups में. The concept, structure or functioning of a school should not be trivialized. ट्रिवियल क्या होता है? ट्रिवियल वो चीज होती है जिसका कोई खास वर्थ होती नहीं है. सो दिस इंस्टीट्यूशन हैज सर्वाइव्ड सिंस एंशिएंट टाइम्स. स्कूल्स की बात कर रहे हैं. इन स्पाइट ऑफ प्रपोजल्स फॉर डी स्कूलिंग ऑफ वेरियस काइंड्स, इट इज ट्रू दैट स्कूल्स टू अ ग्रेट एक्सटेंट परपेचुएट द स्टेटस को. पुरानी चीज को मेंटेन कर रहे हैं वैसे तो. एंड इवान इलिच ऑब्जर्व्ड एनकरेज कंज्यूमरिज्म. स्कूल्स भी कंज्यूमरिज्म को बढ़ावा दे रहे हैं, स्पेशली प्राइवेट स्कूल्स. एंड ओबीडियंस टू अथॉरिटी. ओबीडियंस भी वो सिखाते हैं कि आपसे जो बड़ा है आप उसको बाउ डाउन कीजिए और आप उसकी बात मानिए. लेकिन ये भी तो सच है दैट दोज who produced some of the most evolutionary moments in history, including quantum jumps in knowledge, also went to school. The Einsteins, the Ambedkars, right? Then the Gandhis. ये सब स्कूल तो गए ही थे, right? The kind of web of learners which imagines may in fact have its roots in schools. Absolutely. There are people who trivialize schools for the kind of, जो schools को एक तरह से belittle करते हैं, demean करते हैं, for the kind of investments they demand in terms of space. Right. चल. One thing you never forget is the school you went to. कभी आप भूलेंगे नहीं जिस स्कूल में आप गए थे, फ्रेंड्स जो आपके स्कूल में बने, एंड द काइंड ऑफ टीचर्स जिन्होंने आपको पढ़ाया, काइंड ऑफ टीचर्स जिनसे आपको प्यार था, द काइंड जिनका आपने मजाक उड़ाया दोस्तों के साथ, द काइंड ऑफ टीचर्स, ये सब आप नॉस्टैल्जिकली खुश होकर अपने पास्ट को याद करते हैं. द स्पोर्ट्स एंड द अदर एक्टिविटीज जिनमें आपने पार्टिसिपेट किया होगा स्कूल में. स्कूल्स गिव मेमोरीज, ब्यूटीफुल मेमोरीज. सम ऑफ यू मे स्टिल हैव प्रिजर्व्ड योर स्कूल ब्लेजर. आप में से किसी ने स्कूल का ब्लेजर भी प्रिजर्व करके रखा होगा. ट्रॉफीज, फोटोग्राफ्स विद अ सेंस ऑफ जॉय. इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट टू सी स्कूल्स होलिस्टिकली. कंप्लीटली देखने की जरूरत है स्कूल्स को. इट इज नॉट अ सेट ऑफ atomic items of rooms, library, assembly halls, canteen, and playgrounds. Completely देखते हैं स्कूल को. It is all of these, holistic एक word था यहाँ पर. Here we go. Holistically देखना चाहिए schools को. Symbiotic relationship with each other, the contours of which are often far too obvious. Very beautiful, lovely message. Which one of the following is the author trying to suggest by quoting Chomsky? Technology shall be used in purposefully structured manner in education. Absolutely right. Purpose तो पता ही होना चाहिए ना हमें. Relatively clear framework pursues any kind of inquiry? No. It does not promote any kind of inquiry. It promotes good inquiry. Meaningful. Technology helps to choose what is significant and reject what is not significant? No. We need to think. Then we'll be able to use technology in that manner. Technology must help us to respect individual, not at all. Which of the following is not a premise of author's argument in favor of need for schools? Not. Schools and colleges provide opportunities for socialization. ये तो mentioned है. ऊपर पूछा गया है not a premise. जो reason नहीं हो सकता author के schools को support करने का. The institution of schools and colleges has shown perseverance. ये भी mentioned है तो ये भी नहीं हो सकता क्योंकि तो given है. The current pandemic has proved that students and parents want schools and colleges. तो ये तो अच्छा reason बन गया उल्टा. तीनों तो contrary गए हैं अब तक. Random surfing of the internet may lead to a collection of meaningless information. This cannot be a good reason schooling के favor में. ये correct answer है. The expression linguistic and cultural heterogeneity as used in the passage means ये लिंग्विस्टिक डाइवर्सिटी की ही बात करते हैं. लिंग्विस्टिक एंड कल्चरल डाइवर्सिटी. हेट्रोजेनिटी, कल्चरल हेट्रोजेनिटी, अलग अलग हो जाना. लिंग्विस्टिक लैंग्वेज से रिलेटेड है. Which of the following is not the learning outcome from pandemic? Learning outcome नहीं है. Parents and students from around the world need schools. तो ये तो given है. Technology is undoubtedly and absolutely useful in education. Yes. क्योंकि वो दूसरी तरफ भी चाहते हैं. तो ये एक लर्निंग नहीं है. टेक्नोलॉजी में बी यूज्ड मीनिंगफुली टू मीडिएट. दिस वाज गिवन. ये भी नहीं है. therefore B is the correct choice. Symbiotic relationship क्या होता है? Mutually inclusive relationship? Not at all. Symbiotic क्या होता है? देखिए, symbiosis. Mutually exclusive relationship? Not at all. जब दोनों एक दूसरे को फायदा दें वो mutually beneficial यानी symbiotic relationship है. Right, that takes us to the last passage. A new report forecasting that India can create millions more jobs over the coming years in a chic economy. क्या underscore करती है? क्या चीज highlight करती है? Fundamental shift in the nature of work. जब while automation swept through factory floors and BPOs reduced manpower requirements. BPOs से मैन पावर रिक्वायरमेंट्स की में कमी तो आई थी. राइट. सो ई कॉमर्स, राइड हेलिंग एंड फूड डिलीवरी एप्स आप देख ही रहे हैं. फूड डिलीवरी एप्स कितनी ग्रो कर गई हैं. स्ट्रीमिंग मीडिया एंड फिनटेक हैव क्रिएटेड लैक्स ऑफ टेम्पररी जॉब्स इन द सर्विसेज सेक्टर. हालांकि द जूरी इज स्टिल आउट ऑन द क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ accorded by such gigs and the social security benefits they accord. उसके बारे में तो डिबेट की जा सकती है. वो बहुत कितनी सोशल सिक्योरिटी वो प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं. It recalls the informalization of jobs started much earlier. ये जो informalization of jobs है ये बहुत पहले शुरू हो गया था. रिजल्ट्स आप देख रहे हैं. या एक स्वीपिंग स्केल पर अब दिखाई दे रहे हैं। रिपोर्ट बाय बॉस्टन कंसल्टिंग ग्रुप एंड मिशेल एंड सुजान डेल फाउंडेशन ने प्रिडिक्ट किया है 90 million flexi and gig jobs in a decade from 8 million now, contributing transactions valued at more than this much, और एक additional 1.25 to India's GDP. Obviously, technological evolutions are hard to predict. बिल्कुल सही। एक decade ago, few if any, शायद उन्होंने सोचा होगा, had divined these new jobs. बिल्कुल 10 साल पहले किसने सोचा होगा कि स्विगी फॉर एग्जाम्पल या जोमेटो इतने पॉपुलर हो जाएंगे, ऐसे कॉन्सेप्ट्स। इवन ओला। एक्सेप्टिंग चेंज एज द सोल कांस्टेंट, ये इक्वली क्रिटिकल है टू क्रिएट द सोशियो इकोनॉमिक फ्रेमवर्क दैट कैन सपोर्ट सच जॉब्स। एब्सोल्युटली राइट। नाउ एक्सपेक्टिंग स्टार्टअप्स fueled by venture capital and presently unprofitable to treat gig workers as regular employees, ये practical नहीं है क्योंकि ये permanent jobs नहीं है, temporary jobs हैं। Such moves could impede, problem create कर सकते हैं in innovation and investment। लेकिन अगर central or state governments could deliver in areas like public health, education, insurance and food security, anxieties generated by unsteady, irregular unemployment मैनेज की जा सकती है बेटर। लास्ट ईयर की जो नेशन वाइड लॉकडाउन है ना, जब सडनली अनएम्प्लॉयड माइग्रेंट वर्कर्स ने पैनिक किया था, नेचुरली दे इमीडिएटली दे स्टार्टेड रीलोकेटिंग और घर जाने लगे, गोइंग बैक टू देयर होम्स, अनट्रस्टिंग द प्रॉमिसेस ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट्स। एक्चुअली गवर्नमेंट्स उनको प्रॉमिस भी अगर किया हो तो गवर्नमेंट उनको कॉन्फिडेंस में ले नहीं पाई, सो उन्होंने अनट्रस्ट किया एंड दे वेंट, राइट। सर्व्ड आउट दिस लेसन इन पॉइगनेंट डिटेल, बहुत पावरफुल डिटेल में ये लेसन दिया था, समझ आगे आ जाना चाहिए था हमें। चिक इकोनॉमी डज प्रॉमिस फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी एंड इम्प्रूव्ड चॉइसेस, ये वाली इकोनॉमी प्रॉमिस करती है फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी फॉर मेनी वुमेन एंड पार्ट टाइम वर्कर्स। एवरी टेक्नोलॉजिकल रिवोल्यूशन टिल डेट, जो भी हुआ है, जब टेक्नोलॉजी ग्रो किया है तो कुछ नौकरियों को उसने मिटा दिया है, इफेस कर दिया है, एंड क्रिएटेड प्लेंटिफुल अदर्स, दूसरी बना दी है। देयर इज रूम फॉर ऑप्टिमिज्म इन रैपिडली इमर्जिंग टेक मेडिएटेड वर्ल्ड, एब्सोल्युटली रूम तो है, but only upon strengthening the support of educational and health infrastructure, जो यहाँ पे बात हुई है, health और education में improve होना पड़ेगा हमें। So the report by Boston Consulting Group and Michel and Suzanne Dell Foundation predicts massive rise in gig jobs in a decade. देखें, 90 million flexi and days jobs, huge number. Right? So बाकी को देखने की जरूरत ही नहीं आपको, बहुत easy है। Which of the following can be inferred as a caution by the author? Caution, एक warning, जो संभल जाएं। Central and state governments must ensure management of public health. Okay. Education insurance must ensure management. Okay. Expecting treatment of gig workers as regular employees could impede innovation. Absolutely right. Impede कर सकते हैं ये innovation को. Expecting treatment of these workers as regular employees, क्योंकि ये हैं ही part-time jobs. अगर उनको regular मान लिया जाएगा, तो ये innovation और investment को impede कर सकता है, जो कि कहीं यहाँ पर दिया भी था, ये देखिए. There you go. Quite simple. Next one, in the context of the passage, which of the following best describes this economy? All right. इनफॉर्मली स्ट्रक्चर्ड, बिल्कुल इनफॉर्मली स्ट्रक्चर्ड है। आप फूड की भी बात कीजिए तो विद स्किल बेस्ड शॉर्ट टर्म और फ्रीलांसर लेबर मार्केट, ये परमानेंट जॉब्स नहीं है इनकी। We go back, yeah. The tone of the passage is cynical. Cynical means जब हम किसी पे विश्वास नहीं करते हैं। critical सिर्फ हम क्रिटिसाइज कर रहे हैं या एक इवैल्यूएशन कर रहे हैं। और scornful, now what is scornful? Scornful means जो disrespectfully या किसी को reject करते। और sanguine is something that is optimistic in difficult conditions also. So ये देखिए, वो कहते हैं कि अगर ये बहुत सारी नौकरियां खत्म कर देते हैं, टेक्नोलॉजी जब ग्रो करती है तो कई सारी नौकरियां क्रिएट भी करती है। देयरफॉर ऑप्टिमिज्म बिल्कुल सही आंसर है। अकॉर्डिंग टू द पैसेज, व्हिच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग कम्स एज अ कंसर्न रिलेटेड टू इकोनॉमी? Lack of educational and health infrastructure? No. Temporary nature of work? No. The quality of life? Absolutely. इसको तो वो मान ही रहे हैं कि temporary nature of work है, right? लेकिन वो कंसर्न नहीं है, क्योंकि वो जो नौकरी है वो है ही ऐसी बाय नेचर। शुरू में ही कहा था कि ये सोशल सिक्योरिटी प्रोवाइड नहीं करा पा रही हैं इस तरह की नौकरियां। शायद यहीं से भी विज्ञान, although it is still out, accorded by such, ये देखिए, social security benefits they are called, right? So great, I believe we are through. Yeah, so I hope आपको सारे questions clearly समझ आ गए होंगे। Very soon we'll meet again and discuss another paper. कोशिश करेंगे हम और आप मिलकर एग्जाम क्लियर करने की। Let's do our best. Let's take our best shot. जय हिंद।